Welcome to the show. This is Point of View, and I should be on with Justin. There he is. It's not just me today. Uh, Thanks for joining us. This is the show where we're unashamed to look at political, social, whatever, theological, whatever the issue is, from a biblical point of view, because Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead, and he said the Bible is true. So I think we should listen to him. And if you're a Christian, yeah, you should agree with me. If you're not a Christian, we want to convince you to be a Christian because Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead. That's a really good reason to be a Christian. Today, we're going to be talking about what has become apparently our favorite subject. And that is transgender nonsense, which is, it's sad because it's not a deep subject. It's so simple and so easily refuted, but yet it is something that everyone seems to want to back down on today. And Justin, I'm just not willing to back down on this. And it's just nonsense. And I'm really kind of excited about the video we're going to be responding to today. And that is Matt Walsh was invited on Dr. Phil. Kudos to Dr. Phil for actually having the guts to have somebody on with real conservative principles, not somebody who just gives like lip service to it, but actually has serious conservative principles, and allowing him to actually express what he thought. Now, I'm sure Dr. Phil will never have Matt Walsh on again after what happened, but kudos to him. We're gonna play some of the video. We're gonna respond to it, but I think that these are things that we need to stop backing down on. I like that Matt Walsh is no nonsense on this issue, because this issue is complete nonsense.
It is, and the way that he frames it, I think, is actually really good, because he says, look, a lot of conservatives want to take the approach of, well, it's not fair to women in sports. It's not okay because children can't consent at a particular age, and this, that, and the other. But Walsh frames it in a much more fundamental way, and I think it's the perfect way to frame this is, no, this is about truth. This is
Yeah.
not about unfair, because, honestly, I don't care about women's sports. Do I want them to be fair? Absolutely. Do I think it's injustice that they're allowing men to compete against women? Yes. But I don't watch women's sports. It's not something I'm invested in. It's not something that really tugs at my care, my emotions. It's not anything compelling to me. What is compelling to me is that you're trying to upend truth itself. And
Yeah.
for the average American person, that should be compelling, but for a Christian, that ought to be much more compelling, because we have to go on the standard of truth. We serve the God who is by definition the truth, who is the standard of truth. And because of that, we can't compromise on the truth, because that'd be compromising on the very foundations of our religion altogether.
Mhm.
So this is an important issue, not just because it's unfair to women, which it is, not just because children, don't know what it means to be a boy or a girl, which they don't, but because this is about truth. And I've said this on my show, the Justin Barnes Show, months ago. Conservatism needs to have this anchor. We need to be able to say something is right and something is wrong. And this goes back to our conversation about John MacArthur last week, about at what point, how far can we go with this? But there needs to be an ability to say, no, we oppose that, not because it's going to be unfair to women in sports, but just because it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's great about how he frames this conversation.
Absolutely. And you know what? For Christian, a lot of religions will not really interact on the truth of their claims, right? I believe it, and that's all that matters, and that's it. But that's not the type of religion that Christianity is meant to be. Even Paul, the very first apostles, were very concerned with showing that what they believed was true, not that it's just something that they believed. So I think this is important, and the subject of truth being under such attack by the transgender movement today, it makes it a worthy issue. So, and just to get everyone up to speed, in case you haven't seen this, which I feel like you'd have to be living under a rock because it's been everywhere. But hey, kudos to you if you are able to live under a rock. I wish I could. But if you haven't seen it, basically, last week, Dr. Phil invited two transgender people. They're guys. They're two guys that call themselves non-binary. They got beards. One of them has long hair, and he invited them on to talk about transgenderism, I guess. Anyway, so but he also had he said, look, we're going to have a panel, and he had Matt Walsh also on the platform that he came on afterwards to give the opposing view. Kudos to Dr. Phil for giving both sides. That's not very common in TV today. Here is how the part went when Matt Walsh came on, who just wasn't going to back down about how these guys are guys and they're not women, and this is just nonsense.
You're saying that there should be no construct of gender, just sex. You're either male or female.
Right.
And someone feeling in a mental, emotional way that they don't identify with the sex that they have been biologically created as and assigned at birth based on their genitalia, if they don't feel that way, that there's no construct that describes that, experiences that.
Well, that's got nothing to do with the reality. So you can feel however you want. I mean, I could sit here and say that I feel like a tomato plant, but that doesn't mean that I'm actually in those things. So your self-perception, you can have whatever self-perception you want, but you can't expect me to take part in that self-perception or to take part in this kind of charade, this theatrical production. You don't get your own pronoun.
And by the way, that guy right there calls himself Addison, and that was looking at him. And this is an excellent point. I just wanted to pause here for just a moment, because he's making a simple and obvious but excellent point. Truth isn't whatever you want it to be. You don't get to just make up words and change the English language and demand that everyone else use your version of the English language. A woman has a specific meaning, and you're changing that. Man has a specific meaning, you're changing that. And this is complete nonsense. We can't be expected to change our language because you want us to.
Well, here's the other problem, and this is one thing that I think is still lacking from the presentation that I think Walsh gives. Something that I think needs to be worked in is that this is fundamentally one of the problems people have at a certain point in this conversation, is that we can't say yet in our culture, though we used to be able to, and I hope someday we will be able to again. We can't say there is something a woman ought to be, and there's something a man ought to be. That there are roles that are assigned to sexes that, regardless of how you feel internally, you are to fill depending on your sex. As the husband, as a man, I am the head of my house. I have been given the role of protector, of provider. That is my role. And that was given to me by God. But the problem is, if we're trying to have this neutral playing field conversation, then we have to have a world where there's no ought just in the fact that you're born a woman or a man. And so I think that needs to come into this conversation here, because outside that, what he said is great. But what I would say to Dr. Phil as well there is, here's the problem. If you perceive yourself, if you are born a man and you perceive yourself to be more feminine, and you wanna call yourself a woman, you are wrong, and you should repent, because God created you to be a man, and that's a good thing. Or God created you to be a woman, and you're a woman, not a man, and that's a good thing. And we need to call people to repentance on this, rather than just say, perceive yourself however you want, I don't care, just don't try to change me. That's one part, yes, but also this is something that is not just okay.
Yeah, from a Christian perspective, it's nonsense that God made a mistake and put a woman inside of a man's body. It's just complete nonsense. If you think that God made a mistake, you've made a mistake. Right. You're the one who's wrong. Which, again, Justin, excellent point. I'm going to move along because we have quite a bit to cover here. But while you were talking, I was able to sneak us into the corner of the screen here so you can watch our reactions live to the points being
I like
made.
that my all of my rants I go on are just filler time for you to do the production side of things. That's great.
And if you're listening on the radio, on K-Star Conservative Radio Network, You would never even know this because you don't have the visual. You just have the audio, which is also awesome. We try to make this show so that way you can enjoy it just as well with video as you do with just audio. But anyway, that's just a rant, another rant. Let's go back to here.
Just like you don't get your own prepositions or your own adjectives. It's like if I were to tell you, my adjectives are handsome and brilliant, and no matter whenever you're talking about me, you have to describe me as handsome and brilliant because that's how I identify. Makes no sense. You don't get your own pronouns. That's grammar. That's language.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just because you think this of yourself, it's nonsense to say everyone else has to think that of me too. Let's say a guy says, I think I'm a girl. Now, that guy is wrong. But what's real nonsense is that everyone else now has to say, I think you're a girl too. That's ridiculous. Just like Matt Walsh doesn't get to tell everyone else, you have to call me handsome and brilliant because I think that of myself. You can't just, that's nonsense.
Yeah, and the only difference here is that Walsh said something that we can all observe to be very absurd. Handsome and brilliant. You can't have your own adjectives. But he said something that is less absurd than saying, as a man, that I am a woman. Why? You can become more handsome. You can, and to different people, you may be more handsome than others. For example, my wife says I'm handsome. I have no idea why. That's not what most people would say. But there's a subjectivity aspect to it, and there's a changeable aspect of it. It is fluid in a sense. You can become brilliant. You can get smarter. You can study. You can learn. That is changeable. So it's obviously obnoxious and totally out of left field for people to think you can choose your own adjectives. But that's less absurd than saying you can change your own pronouns.
Yeah.
Because that does true. Not change.
Adjectives are subjective. Pronouns aren't.
I would say there's an aspect of subjectivity to them. Yeah. Like, I think there are objective standards, but anyway, that's a whole different discussion. We don't have time. We need to move on.
Right.
So you think it's a delusion? Someone is self-delusional.
Yeah, I think it's delusion. It could be mental illness. It could be it's a lot of different things. With children, wow. There's also just.
Hang on.
How is that surprising to her?
A bearded thing. I don't know what I don't even know what this originally was. I don't know what it's trying to be. But this person we are looking at right now is a bearded person presenting themselves as a female with a full beard, and I have no idea what's going on. And when it's said to be delusional, is shocked. This is America in 2022.
But here's the thing, Justin, and I want to really get to this because I think this is going to bear itself out as we bring out the evidence.
Real quick. The bearded lady used to be part of the freak show.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We used to, as a culture, understand this. So go ahead.
So to the viewers, bear with us because we have after the Dr. Phil appearance by Matt Walsh, Addison and his boyfriend, whoever that other guy was.
Oh, they're in a relationship? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they showed pictures at the beginning of the Dr. Phil thing with them kissing and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty gross. But anyway, Addison goes and posts on Twitter about in a response to this, and then Matt Walsh responds to that. I don't know how much of that we'll get to, but I want you to see that in this sort of debate, in this argument, Matt Walsh is bringing facts and reason and logic to bear on the subject. But their debate tactic is, you've offended me, you lose, right? They think you hurt my feelings, trump card, I win the debate. And that's why once the debate airs, what they do is they respond by saying, and we'll see this in a moment, oh, my feelings were hurt. Trump, I won the debate. See, they think that that's the argumentation to use to win the debate here. And again, it's nonsense. That's not how you win debates. It doesn't matter what as a matter of fact, the fact that you're offended kind of means the other side won. I mean, that's a good indicator.
I mean, I think you could be offended in a debate without it meaning the other side what. Like, for example, when Roman Catholics compare the lack of biblical evidence for a lot of their like Marian dogmas, and they'll say, the Trinity isn't the word Trinity isn't in the Bible. I get offended when they try to compare the Marian dogmas to the Trinity. So you can be offended in a debate without losing, but I get what you're saying. Taking offense itself is not an argument.
Yeah, but okay, but I want you to watch now because as he starts really pressing them about this, their response is, "You're offending me. How dare you offend people? Are you sure you want to offend people?" Like that's their big because they're used to people backing down when they bring up, "Oh, you're offending me," and Matt Walsh isn't going to do that, and I don't think Christian people should. I don't think it's a kind thing to do at all by backing down on truth. But let's play the rest of this.
Basic confusion that all kids have. Like that's why when you hear a parent say, "Oh, my 4-year-old son came to me and said that I'm a girl now, and so that's what I'm gonna raise him as a girl." No, you're a 4-year-old. I have 4 kids. When a 4-year-old boy comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm a girl," here's a good follow-up question: what is a girl? Ask him what he means by that. What do you mean by girl? And when you ask him that, here's what he'll tell you. He will tell you what he really means is that he wants to do some of the things that girls do, like play with the dollhouse, or he likes the color pink. That's fine. Play with the dollhouse, but you're still a boy. And that's a question I would like to throw out to other members of the panel. Actually, because just like the 4-year-old can't answer what is a girl, well, this is one of the problems with this left-wing gender ideology is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. It's like, what is a woman?
Well,
can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't, because it's not for me to say. Womanhood looks different for everybody.
What do you define a woman as?
An adult human female.
And what does a female mean?
Well,
how
that's
do you define a female?
someone with female reproductive organs.
Okay.
Someone who's, here's the thing, when you're female, it goes right down to your bones, your DNA. So that's why if someone dies,
Okay.
we could dig up their bones 100 years from now. We have no idea what they believed in their head, but we can tell what sex they were because it's ingrained in every fiber of their being.
Interesting. So I'm trying to understand. Your definition is that a woman is someone who is female, you said, right?
Correct. Is
Okay.
a biological female.
So what happens if we have maybe someone who is female, identifies as a woman, right? Cisgender woman, right? As you just explained, maybe doesn't have the ability to reproduce. Maybe doesn't have those organs that you're talking about that are reproductive organs.
Now, Matt Walsh has already dealt with this objection. He's already said it's down to the bones. Like we can dig up people where all the bones of people from ancient history, and without any reproductive organs still existing, we can find out whether they were male or female, because that's not the point. Your body is female or it is male.
Yeah, and real quick, it's like God formed your body to affirm that reality a million different ways.
Yeah.
Because you do have reproductive organs. You have your DNA. You have your chromosomes. You have bone structures, bone density, muscle density, all of that stuff. All of it. You can look at it and say, that's a man, that's a woman. It is in every part of your physical being.
Yeah.
And to look at the person that Walsh is talking to, it strikes me as a guy, even though it's trying to be a woman, because why? Facial hair. Why do we associate that with men? Because that's how God made men. They naturally, if they don't shave, they will grow facial hair. Some of them looks like dead rats. Some of them have nice facial hair. But guys grow facial hair in general because that's how it is. Every part of your body is a man or is a woman.
Yeah.
This is a fundamental fact of who you are. And now you can't just have fundamental facts anymore.
Yeah. There's no
they're
such thing.
offensive.
Yeah, that's rude, Justin. How dare you?
I have answered the question. You stood up here and said trans women are women.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean. What is a woman?
Womanhood is something that, just as Ethan explained, I cannot define because I am not
But
myself.
you used the word. So what did you mean when you said trans women are women if you don't know what it means?
Right. So here's the thing. So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people
That describes what?
people who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
Was to each their own. Each woman, each man, each person is going to have a different relation with their own gender identity and define it differently.
Like, okay, to each their own. That's the point. You're just saying that nothing now is a woman, and a woman is nothing. You're saying you're not redefining woman, you're undefining woman so that there is no definition for the word, and then you can just throw it on whatever you want. Oh, that's salt and pepper shaker. It's a woman. Whatever, because there is no definition for women, which is just wrong. You cannot expect us to just change the English language so that you can call yourself a woman. And why would you want to call yourself a woman if there's no meaning to it? That's nonsense.
I would love to ask Addison if Z's or she, he, whatever, knows what a dog is. Because here's the thing. I think it's a he. He is not a dog. But yet could probably define what a dog is. In other words, who you are, what you are, is not up to your subjective perception of yourself to define what you are. You are definable absent your opinion.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
I can, like Walsh said, we can dig you up and find out what you are. We could dig up dog bones and find out that's a dog. By the way, we could probably tell that's a boy dog, that's a girl dog. Like, you don't have to be something in order to be able to identify it. So that's just a completely illogical thing to say. Not only that, but to say, like you said, this is not redefining women, it's erasing them. Because now it is any person that says, I am a woman, that is a woman. Which means a woman means nothing. Nothing at all. There's nothing special about womanhood because anyone can be a woman. There's nothing inherently beautiful about womanhood because it isn't anything. And usually, the way it's defined in transgenderism, womanhood is just a sum of several stereotypes. That person has put on a wig, and I know he says he's not a woman or whatever, but most of the time, transgender women, which are men who believe themselves to be women, why do they think they're transgender? Because they want to wear heels. They want to wear makeup. They want to wear dresses. Meaning women are just the sum of stereotypes.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. We understand there's a beauty to womanhood. There's a beauty to masculinity. There's a beauty to the differences that God made. And they're more than just stereotypes.
Yeah.
That there is an inherent worth and beauty that God built into them. I mean, Josh, you have 4 kids. Is there a beauty to womanhood?
Yes.
Is there a beauty to what women can do?
Absolutely.
I mean, absolutely.
And I really like how Matt Walsh really stays on point. He says, listen, I've answered your question. Now you answer mine. And he's going to stay on point here. So I'm going to play the last 30 seconds here. Let me show you this.
And so
I'm not
trans
asking for
women are women too.
Okay.
And you want to hold on.
Say it again. Trans
You
women
want
are
to
women.
reduce.
What you
listen,
won't even
listen.
tell me
You
what the
want to
word
reduce,
means, though. So
you
that's
want to
the
reduce
problem.
women. You want to reduce men down to maybe just their genetics, our genitals,
No.
our chromosomes, right? That's what you're
What
saying.
you want to do is
that's what we
what
are
you
at the end of the
you
day.
want to do is appropriate women. You want to appropriate womanhood.
Okay.
And turn it into basically a costume that can be worn. We've got when we.
as a
Hey, it's
man,
real-
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
It's real
literally
funny. It's
saying
real funny
what a
when
woman
you're
should look
yeah,
like.
right.
As a man, you're literally saying this is what a woman is.
Yeah, well,
Isn't that a little sexist?
Because I am willing to define it, but you won't.
Yeah, so I'm willing to define it, but you won't. You just want to put on make women a costume that you can wear. Not them specifically, because they don't want to call themselves women. But this is right on the money. Let me go, because we only have a couple minutes left. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hang on, really, really quick. I want to get it in. What they are saying, what Walsh is pointing out here, which you're right, is this is sort of a master class in how to dismantle transgender ideology. But what Walsh is saying here is, to put it another way, what you're basically saying in the transgender ideology is left shoe, stoplight, horse, green, arrow. Why? Nothing makes sense. You're not communicating a thing in the words you are saying. If this is really what it is, that woman means whoever, whatever, I can't even define it because I'm not one. Well, then you're saying these words don't mean a thing. So trans women are women means nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
In other words, how about we go back to the biological realities and have that reflected in our language instead?
Mm-hmm. And it is anti-feminist. What he said, you want to appropriate women. You want to say women are nothing special. Matter of fact, they're nothing at all. And the same thing for men. Men are nothing special. They're nothing at all. What you're saying is not everyone's special, but no one is special because no one is anything and everything is just nothing. which is just complete nonsense. But it was super offensive. You could tell that their big arguing point was, "Oh, I'm offended. I can't believe you said that. Oh my goodness, I'm offended." And before the show actually aired, of course, this was taped like a month ago, and aired just last week. Before the show aired, or when the show aired, I'm not sure if this was right after or right before, Addison, who is the guy, that's the name that he calls himself, the guy with the long hair, with the beard, posted this. I think this was on Instagram, maybe Twitter, something like that. Said this. Since the taping, Ethan and I have been experiencing a heightened level of anxiety to the point that we've had numerous nightmares and depression spirals over the last month. This week has been the worst.
No. This week has been the worst.
Oh, is it? This week has been the worst. Right, that's right. What ended up happening was much different than they had discussed with us, and we left feeling attacked by another guest and played by the producers. Please send us both good vibes today. We could really use it. We tried our best with no preparation for what the Dr. Phil show actually had planned behind our backs, and we hope our visibility inspires viewers. Now, we don't have time to play it, but Matt Walsh responded to this, and he says, no, we all knew that this was going to be a panel discussion. There were going to be people who disagreed. What they didn't understand, though, was that people were going to actually have, not back down and say, no, this is nonsense. What they were expecting people to do was to sort of say, oh, look, what you do is fine, and I don't mind that, but I just disagree. Matt Walsh is like, no, I don't just disagree. You're actually wrong. Which is helpful, because if you are wrong, it's really good for someone to say, hey, you're wrong.
Yeah, our culture has trained people to be cudgeled into not wanting to offend people as the highest good. So if you offend somebody who has, by the way, it ought to tell you something about a movement, about its correctness, that it is so easily offended, that it is so spineless and so cowardly that it cannot face opposition because it melts into a puddle of weeping goo. That ought to tell you something about the movement, but our culture has trained people that you're not allowed to offend this particular group, and people have bought that hook, line, and sinker. This is a good demonstration of what it means to just say, I don't care what you call me. I'm going to speak the truth because you're insane, and this is not a hard thing to prove.
Yeah, listen, Christian people, let me just end this by saying, insanity is not a good look for you. Okay.
Yeah.
And backing down and saying, no, insane people, I just don't want to offend you. Look, we are not, our goal is not offense, right? We're not out there to offend people. But if the truth offends people, it offends people. We don't stop being truthful, right? Our goal is to be truthful, and we don't back down on that in order to stop the offense. That's the end. That's all the time we got. We'll see you next time on Point of View.